So Shawn wants to know how he can measure if someone's really ready for the challenges of being an entrepreneur. Hey there everyone, it's David Barnett from davidcbarnett.com, the blog site and associated YouTube channel where I talk about buying and selling small businesses, operating small businesses, managing small businesses, local investing, anything else really that viewers or readers want to ask me about as it relates to small business. Today I've got a question from Shawn, who I'm guessing from the way it's worded works with people who may want to either start or buy a business, and he wonders if they're really prepared for the challenges that owning your own business can bring. And it's a great question, Shawn, because when I was a business broker, I often would run into this where people would come in saying they wanted to buy a business. And when I did a little digging, I would realize, here's a person with a really great job and a guaranteed pension and all these perks, and they want to throw this all away and get into the rough and tumble world of entrepreneurship where nothing is 100% certain and you can have cash flow crises and all these things. And I would often wonder if people were fully prepared. And so what I did is I created a series of tests that I could give people to find out if they were serious buyers or not, because I didn't want to waste a bunch of my own time with people who ultimately would never close on a deal, because by the time you get to the last mile, people will start to really understand what they're getting into, and if they're not ready for those challenges, they're not going to do it, and my time would have been wasted back when I was working as a broker. So, number one, the story of the late night credit card terror, as I like to call it. So one of the things that happened to me when I was a business owner is I had a cash flow crisis, and one night I was laying in bed. It was probably about 3:30 in the morning. I'd been laying there for 3.5 hours trying to figure out how I was going to find the money to pay my receptionist because a deal didn't close in time. The payment wasn't arriving. I just paid the rent on my office. And I didn't know where I was going to get the money to pay her. And then I realized at 3:30 in the morning that it would be okay. All I had to do was take a cash advance on my personal credit card. Now, that seems really awful. And you know what? It was. But it's the reality of small business. And I've often asked the question to business owners, hey, have you ever had to take a cash advance on a credit card to pay your staff? And it's surprising how many of them actually nod their head and say yes. That's the kind of thing that can happen when you're in business, especially if you're a novice or you don't have a lot of experience and you're not planning, or you're in a crazy business like I was, business brokerage, where the cash flow goes up and down all the time. It can give people serious pause to consider that kind of scenario. So that's number one. Number two, can they sell, right? Owning your own business often means that, even if you have salespeople working for you, you're the one that's going to have to be out there doing the biggest sales role. Because if the sales don't happen, guess what? You're out of business. So I've often challenged people by saying, have you ever worked in sales? If somebody has worked in a commission sales role, to me, in my mind, that's halfway to being a business owner, because you have to live off of what you kill. And if you're not successful in selling, you're out the door eventually, right? So if somebody has never worked in commission sales, if they've never had to rely upon themselves, keeping a cool head, smiling, delivering good customer service without developing what I call commission breath, which is when salespeople are so desperate to close a deal that they scare people off. I mean, you can feel this sometimes from salespeople. If they can do selling, if they have done selling, I feel better. If they haven't, then one of the things I would often challenge people to do is I would say, why don't you go do some selling for someone like a not-for-profit? Why don't you go do some door-to-door fundraising for, the Cancer Association or some other good cause? Or why don't you spend some time telemarketing asking for donations, for the SPCA or something like this? It's amazing how people who are afraid to ask for the sale won't even volunteer for that kind of thing, even with nothing on the line. They've still got their job, their house is still paid for, they still don't want to stick their necks out. To me, that's a huge red flag that the person is not prepared ultimately to run and operate their own business. Anyway, those are a few insights of mine, Shawn, on your question. Great question. Please, everyone, keep them coming. Don't forget to come to davidcbarnett.com, where you can sign up for my email list and see all my blog posts, But on top of that, I've been on a lot of podcasts lately, 7 or 8 really great ones where I've been interviewed by hosts where we've talked about buying and selling businesses and managing small businesses. And there's a lot of great content there. Go to my blog site and go under the media tab. And there's a whole list of all the interviews that I've done. You can go and listen to those podcasts. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next time.